we have a marketing tower of power here. And in that foundation of the tower of power is go-to-market plan, but at the very bottom is brand message. How do you speak about your company? And does everyone on your team speak about it the same way? Get all the arguments out on the table, get a brand message you can all stand behind, or else you're going to be lost in that noise you talked about very early in our conversation here about just so much content and not being able to claim the space. If you don't know what you're about and what your unique value props are, how can you go claim the space?
Chris, it is a treat to have you in this conversation because the depth of expertise that you have specifically in high-ticket B2B marketing would be hard to overstate. I've seen your work directly. I know you have worked with some of my clients before. So this is like going right to the source. Follow the stream all the way up to the actual mountain spring source. This is Chris. Thank you for taking time with me today.
Oh, thank you, Colt, for inviting me today. Excited to have this chat.
So, just what's happening for me is it just looks like the line between what is marketing, what is PR is in flux, right? The horizon of responsibility for marketers shifting, what PR is responsible for, the expected results that people are trying to get out of when they either have in-house marketing staff or they engage third-party marketing supporters like you guys, like ClarityQuest. Tell me how you're seeing the line move and where is it settling in 2023 or is it not settling? Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I'll bring us back to 2020 just for a slight bit here. And at that juncture with the pandemic, we saw PR shoot up in terms of demand for it, right? All of a sudden there were no trade shows. People were having harder times getting content. So they looked to those third-party validation sources like publications, and getting into those to get the word out. Well, we haven't seen the demand for that go down. What we've seen is this integration and combination of earned media with SEO, with other content and digital methods, right?
Sure.
So, now we're seeing both in-house teams and agencies who can take advantage of the confluence of earned media, great content for good patient advocacy in the healthcare world, right?
Yes.
And digital and environment and have expertise in all those. Wow, they're really, really making an impact.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's both an expansion kind of going into a multi-channel situation, but aiming for a more concise sort of version of a result. Do I have that correct?
Absolutely. You absolutely have that correct. And it's looking for that content that's super quality, not just content that's let's crank out 5 million pieces here. That doesn't
so I had this question in mind for later, but what you just said actually brought me right to it. So what I'm observing is with generative AIs, the volume of content has exploded. The capacity for organizations to just continuously, uninterrupted, spit out mediocre content has exploded, right? Like what? Oh my goodness. So I expressed this in a LinkedIn post recently. I do believe that the window for organizations to establish themselves as the keep subscribing to us source of important information is about 9 months to 12 months out, right? That's it. And after that, if you haven't established over this next year that yours is the content that is making a difference for your market's job, how things are going in their company, the insights that they're gaining, the intelligence that they're operating on, like the time is now, like critically now, because the default action on any email that comes in is unsubscribe. I mean, it's just become the number one button that's clicked is unsubscribe. So how do you make sure that your company stands out as one of the few remaining that haven't been unsubscribed? What guidance do you have for high ticket B2B companies as they look to create content to make sure that they become critically needed content rather than just the next mediocre? What do you got?
How can you tell your story in a different way and from different viewpoints that are not just the marketing department? We have a client who does a coffee talk with the CEO, right? And they
Ah,
send clients coffee before and mugs before the event, right? And prospects, and it's such a beautiful idea. I'll give a shout out to Julie Walk and the Carium team. They do a fabulous job with that, and that's getting a viewpoint of experts in their company that are outside of marketing, even at the C,
yes,
right? And your company has done things with expert roundtables, videos with the
yeah,
CEO, with the CTO. You know,
sure.
content is a team sport, right? Good content. It isn't
Great
a
quote.
bot.
Great quote.
That's a
It
good
is a team
team
sport. Yes.
sport, right? It's not just because the bot can write it and it can write okay content or it can write poor content.
Right.
But it can't write what your CEO, your CTO, your CMO, and your purchasing person all see every day in talking to your clients and prospects.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's so true. So critically true. I do see so many companies that it is valuable to have support in generating thought leadership content, but if you don't have channels, mechanisms, flywheels, processes for regularly engaging the rich expertise that exists in your organization, you can't produce things that are going to be meaningfully impactful to the market that you're targeting. It just won't work. So I'd be curious to hear, as business operators and C-suite leaders and other people who possess that kind of critical intelligence, how do you create an approach that doesn't overburden them and yet still grabs from them the right nuggets of valuable information that can turn into great content? How do you do that? How do you coach your clients in doing that?
Yes, marketing definitely has to take the lead on it, right? They're the organizers, thought leaders, facilitators in the effort because you can't burden your CEO and your CTO with 5 hours per month of content
Right?
participating.
Totally. Yes.
Right. But, and then you also have to know which channels your particular participants are comfortable with. We were just talking today about a client, and one of the CEOs likes to write but doesn't like to speak, right? So, okay, we're going to use him in a different way than we might use the CTO who likes to speak.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Right, and because
Yes.
everyone has their strengths and
Yes.
weaknesses in there. But how we approach it from a strategic point is we actually come up with a thematic content calendar for
Ooh.
every client where we're going to do content, and we won't do it without it, which lays out quarterly themes over the course of the year. Now, of course, if you get a great client win or something, we're going to fit that into the content calendar.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what themes are coming up? When is Rare Disease Day for your company? When is, a particular revenue cycle
Yep.
management day that's important? We got the Beckers coming, this conference, that conference. You have a product announcement coming out. But where are your thought leadership concepts and how should we wind those in? Where I
Yeah.
see folks go wrong in hamster wheel content, I call it, right? It's like
Yes.
everything changes every day, every month, and your audience never gets to see a complete theme play out,
Great. Yes.
right? If
Yeah,
you
it's a
can
great point.
talk on a topic over a quarter and give different viewpoints, client viewpoints, C-level viewpoints, people see it again, see it again. It's that old like Mad Men, advertising adage.
Yeah.
It 7 times.
I like that a lot. It's just really good guidance because I do see there's what would you call it? It's like almost an over exuberance of I want to share all these things, and we're going to change the topic every week. But to establish over the course of the arc of a full quarter, all these perspectives on a single theme, I think that's brilliant. I think that you really get a sense of these guys know this, and then the next quarter they also know that, and the next quarter they also know that, right? So rather than just going a million miles an hour, like an inch deep all the way across, dozens of topics, we're going to go deep into this, and then we're going to go deep into that. And I love how that creates the opportunities for cross coordination between the experts in the organization, right? So last week, Jim was talking about this. I think that's great. I want to pile on with this, right? So there's multiplier effects that come when you take that approach. I think that's really smart. Wanted to ask you, certainly, as you go through an economic contraction, right? That's just going to happen. You will see organizations pulling back. And oftentimes pullbacks happen across marketing, PR, etc. Sometimes there are smart moves there. Sometimes they could like cut off your nose to spite your face type of thing, right? So you're shooting yourself in the foot. I want to hear from you. Where do you see pullbacks? Yep, that's probably not activity you want to continue to pursue right now. It's working. That's smart. Versus, please don't do this because you're going to cost yourself dearly in the long run. Here's how. Well, give me a sense of how to pull back smartly.
Yeah. So I'll just give you a lay of the land first, and then I'll give some advice. So
Yeah.
in the B2B health tech and biotech and general tech where we play, we're not seeing as much of a pullback as a caution. Just the
Okay.
sales cycle taking a lot longer to get people to commit the dollars, but the dollars are still getting committed, which is very
Okay.
interesting. And that's a different dynamic than a 2008, 2009, and hope it stays that way.
Yes. Yes.
Right. But when people say, okay, I do have to cut back on this, we know our revenue is not going to come in or we're not going to get the investment. I really like marketing audits. One of the
Oh,
chapters
okay.
of my upcoming book is audit is not a dirty word. It is in taxes, but not in marketing. Right. So
Ah,
how do you really look at what your marketing department is doing and try and get as much attribution as possible, but look at the
wow.
financials behind it, right? We have some clients who are like doing sponsorships, and we're like, really, is that sponsorship at that show getting you the ROI you need? Or could you
Yes.
spend less and
Right.
get double the effect? Could you do a
Right.
concierge suite rather than a trade show booth, for
Yeah.
example?
I love all those ideas. As you talk about attribution, I'll put a plug in here for a friend. So I love Caliber Mind as a tool for where you find complex marketing efforts and strategies can actually all be still channeled into effective attribution models. And certainly Caliber Mind is one of many, but I find them to be a strong player in that space. So, if you're looking for digital solutions in that type, I do recommend them. But even without a digital solution, a SaaS solution, really trying to include in whether you've got it in Salesforce or other tools, you can still cobble it together. It's more challenging, it's more manual, but I totally agree with you. If you found that over the last year you continue to spend, you sponsored the lanyard. Okay, can you really illustrate that was translating into sales, right? So, can you give me the 2023? I use the phrasing the start, stop, continue. I don't know if it's possible to sort of speak to it broadly in B2B PR, B2B marketing in high ticket circumstances, but do you have a sense of, I've seen people that have been doing this that probably should stop that. They should continue this. And it's time to start looking at beginning with that. Start,
Hmm.
stop, continue.
From those audits, what should you cut, and then
Well,
what?
I mean, sure. If
Yeah.
you've had visibility in terms of the audits, then you're in a phenomenal position to speak to start, stop, continue. But like from whatever perspective you have, what's your advice?
Trade shows in general, really. I mean, companies did without them for 3 years, and then all of a sudden we're seeing that push again towards it. But what do you really need? Do you need the 40 by 40 booth with the big double decker, or do you just need a smaller booth and a concierge suite and a good party and
Yeah,
a nice speaker? And shoot, it kills me that folks spend all this money on the booth, but they don't bother to get a customer and submit an abstract to speak, right? Because that's
totally.
right. That is where your gold is. And if you have that speaker up there and then they can come to your booth, well, golden, then the booth is worth it, right? But just looking at the digital side, we're seeing happily, yay, people going back to SEO. For a while, it was, the ugly child. It's not sexy anymore. I got to be on
Yep.
TikTok. SEO always gets you qualified leads. It should
Yes.
be your number one channel. It is everyone's number one channel. It's not an excuse to say, I don't understand this. Hire a good agency who knows it. We're not going to ruin your site. We're not going to ruin your reputation. It works. It is
Yeah.
everyone's number one channel once we get in there. And then having nurture campaigns, right? Where we see a lot of marketing programs go wrong, and we've made this mistake and learned from it, is generate a lot of top of funnel leads, and then in a high ticket B2B environment, don't nurture. right? And the sales cycles are 12, 18, 24 months.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have to nurture those. You're not going to close in 3 months. People get frustrated.
It's
We
so
haven't closed
true.
anything in 3 months. Well, what kind of nurture campaigns can you be doing? Executive roundtables with your
Right.
CEO, with customers. They're really easy actually to set up and do now on LinkedIn. Reach out
Yeah.
to people who had a first touch. Oh, I downloaded something, but I wasn't ready for a call yet. Get them to that second thing that's a date before the wedding, right? Right.
Yes.
Date is executive roundtable, webinar, concierge suite.
Yeah.
Wedding is the demo request.
Yes.
Right? That is that's the dinner with relatives the day before the wedding for everyone.
Yeah, that's phenomenal guidance again. So you mentioned that there had been a pullback from conferences. I mean, obviously, well, they weren't happening. Then they came back. I'm observing sort of a hesitation, a skepticism, mostly among folks who were, I would say, old school minded about a conference, meaning, hey, we just do this for visibility, right? Because there's now, it seems like coming back into the conference scene, there's more of a revenue expectation, not just a visibility expectation. So I want to hear from you, for the folks who are kind of disenchanted on the conference scene, go back, don't go back in a different way. Like conferences, yes or no? Like, what is your thought about it in general?
Right. I think you have to right size, as I was speaking earlier, right size your presence there. What do you actually need to get the job done? And what is the job? Like what is your KPI for that conference?
Great.
Is it just brand awareness? Is it 300 leads? Is it you're going to have meetings? You need a place? It really depends on what your goals are. I'm not
Yeah.
adverse to meetings and to trade shows, but right size it for what your goals are. We've had a lot of clients very, very successful with a concierge suite, with a client speaker, and then a party afterwards. And
Great.
you're like, oh my gosh, we were spending, $100,000 on a booth all these years and we didn't get anything, right? And then we ran the party and the concierge suite and we got a lot for very little spend, especially depending on where the conference is. Like HIM's coming up in Chicago. Chicago's a hard one to do concierge suites, etc., because of McCormick Center and where it's located. But if you're in like Orlando, Nashville, Vegas, those are great venues
They
to have
are. They really
a
are.
great little concierge or a dinner or a lunch. Get
Or a
off
cabana.
Yeah, get off your feet, come and hang out with us for a while, get off the show floor. People want to get off the show floor after a
They
while
do, yes.
and do it there. So, it really depends on what your goals are. Do you have to be at shows? We have plenty of successful clients that never go to a show or only speak
Yeah.
at the show. And then we have some who say, hey, it's really a lead gen vehicle for us, especially if someone is speaking, right? If you have
I
two,
totally dig that.
yeah.
Yeah, if you get somebody to speak and they're in the booth, you have other ways to draw people to the booth, things like that. Because I mean, more and more what I see as I'm on the showroom floors, I'm on the expo floors, you watch the actual stakeholders, the key economic decision makers, the buyers, they walk through, they're like this, please don't. No, look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me. Right? Like,
Look at HIMS, you have the tag. One year I did the full payment. I usually get a pass, but I full paid. So I looked like I was a health system executive.
oh
Oh my
yeah,
God. I was like
totally.
ready to get out of there after 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Ah,
Right.
man, it's tough.
Right. So
Yes.
they're hanging out in the rooms where the talks are. They're hanging
Right.
out off the venue. So, and they're much happier and usually much more comfortable, especially the CIO level, CTO
Yep.
level,
Yep.
right? Being in those suites than out on that show floor getting.
Totally right. Absolutely agree with that. Okay, I think I have maybe just a couple more questions for you. I really appreciate everything that you provided so far. I want to talk about what appears to be this sort of expanding horizon of responsibility for marketing teams. And what I mean is, yeah, I mean, at the broadest sense, you have to create visibility for our brand. Okay, that was known. And then the horizon expanded a little bit beyond that to you have to generate leads for our brand. And then the horizon in the last, I would say, 24-ish months appears to be you need to deliver relationships for our brand, right? Like people who are engaged, not a lead. I'm talking about an actual relationship. You've been in a conversation with them. It's gone further than, right? So tell me about how you're seeing, what you're seeing, your perspective relative to the horizon of responsibility for marketing in under the biggest umbrella of revenue and et cetera, like business goals? And what are some of the tactics that you're seeing work?
Yeah, so we're actually absolutely seeing that same trend, and we're seeing marketing given revenue goals too.
Right.
Right, which
Yes.
is creating this very interesting dynamic. I was having lunch with a vice president of marketing, and she's like, "Oh, now it's like this big fight between who owns that lead and where
Yep.
that lead gets attributed." And oh my goodness, I think we're going to see a trend of much more team building within sales and
Yeah.
marketing finally happening. We've been talking about sales marketing alignment. No, let's talk about a sales marketing team, because that's what it's going to be. And I think you're
That's
going to,
it.
right, a lot less of sales as a commission-based structure. I think we're going to see these very interesting types of structures with bonuses,
Yeah.
because marketing is given that responsibility now too. And really, usually, like in a high-performing team, 65% of the conversion revenue can be tracked back to marketing, not
Yep.
sales, right?
Yep.
And then marketing gets a chip on its shoulder because they're like, oh, well, they're getting commission and we
I know that space. I know it well. I know
right,
it so well.
right. So what is working in terms of that broad structure of marketing having all this responsibility? A super strong marketing leader. One of the things I'm always pressing, and I hate hearing from companies, is like, oh, we have a chief revenue officer and they're over sales and marketing. Have a chief marketing officer, have a
Yeah.
marketing leader in your company that's at the same level as sales, so that teamwork can happen. And then you
Right.
automatically tell the rest of the company by that hire that this is serious business. We believe in marketing, right?
Yeah. I
Marketing is
love
not just
that.
for fun and brochures and to put together the trade show booth. It has a real role in this company with a C-level person at the head of this.
Yes.
The auditing is really important to right size your team at the right time. People hold on to people too often, I think, right? That really aren't pulling their weight or maybe haven't adapted to the times, can't understand analytics. Everyone in the team has to have a certain level of understanding of analytics
Yes.
at different levels, right? Your content person
Yeah.
doesn't need the same as your SEO person, but getting that knowledge spread across the team, cross functionality more and more as there's more responsibility. And companies now, with a little bit of the pullback, are expecting one or two or five people to do the work of 20, right? And
Yes.
that's just not sustainable. So how do you put together a team either as outsourced partnerships or interns or whatever that you have to do with the budget you're working with to get that job done?
Yeah. Chris, your expertise is just pouring through right now. I'm so glad to have had a chance to talk to you. I just have a couple more things. It's so clear that you have mastery level on this. I would love to be able to recommend to this audience sources of information that you use. Right? What are you? How are you staying fresh on all this stuff? Are there content feeds that you want to recommend?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of Ann Hanley's when it comes to anything on content. Definitely recommend her newsletter.
Okay.
I love the Moz folks and moz.com on what
Yep.
they write on SEO. I knew Rand Fishkin back in the SEO days. He sold Moz a while ago, but that's always a great source of information for training yourself on SEO.
Yep.
Forbes and Forbes Agency Council for general marketing. What are agencies thinking about? How are agencies dealing with client challenges and solving them for customers in the B2B space is a really good one. And I'll do a little bit of a selfish plug. I have an upcoming book this fall called Stop
Hey, right on.
Starvation Marketing, which we'll publish in September, which goes over the importance of marketing for B2B tech.
Okay, first on the list, please. I'd like a signed copy.
Got it. You got a signed copy, Colt.
Fantastic. All right. Last thing is, I always like to leave the audience with, okay, I can go do that on Monday when I get back to the office. You've laid out so many great recommendations, and I've taken good notes here. I'll be putting a number of these things in the description for this talk. But sometimes it's just like, just give me the one thing. I gotta have one thing that I know I can go back to the office on Monday and it's gonna move the needle. What do you want this audience to hear as the one thing to go back?
Yeah. Do you have a unique, proven, verifiable brand message? Right.
Okay.
That is the love. We have a marketing tower of power here. And in that foundation of the tower of power is go to market plan, but at the very bottom is brand message. How do you speak about your company? And does everyone on your team speak about it the same way? Get all the arguments out on the table, get a
Yeah.
brand message you can all stand behind, or else you're going to be lost in that noise you talked about very early in our conversation here about just so much content and not being able to claim the space. If you don't know what you're about and what your unique value props are, how can you go claim the space?
Well, and I got fingers crossed right now that your answer is yes. Your book is going to tell us how to do that.
I have a couple chapters on branding.
Okay.
Your brand can't be bland is one of them.
All right. Yes. Great. Wow, Chris, this has been a real treat. I have every expectation that I'm going to circle back with you sometime before the end of this year for another conversation. But you've given us so much value. Thank you so much for taking this time. Anything you want to tell the audience about how to reach you?
Now, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Chris Locum, or our website, clarityqst.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, Chris.
Thank you, Cole, for the invitation. I really enjoyed it.